Introduction on Mad Ethnicity. Observing arguments and policies essentially designating to us by the superstitious, segregate souls, by scientists, a segregate class of new genetics, by medicine, segregate rights, by advocacy, segregate choices, in law, segregate status, by politicians, segregate protections, by determinists, cast of endless misfortune, and blood from our lineages, in consideration of speakers, from our voices. We already have well over and more than enough outside authority to separate our interests as a united mad ethnicity. Therefore, allow the ethnically mad and our allies to work together to abolish the insane defense for crimes of violence, including sex crimes, and work toward more equalized justice. Repair or reinstate constitutional rights to protect the innocent from abuse. Demand to see equal justice in the justice systems for all people everywhere, rather than continue diverting persons into a court of segregate rights to avoid fixing fundamental flaws there and class-based inequalities in legal representation. Educate that a justice system where the court may itself rule not to let a person whom desired to plead innocence prove innocence was of course compromised before the court's plea of insane on behalf of the person. Educate that whatever media outlet makes efforts to allow preemptive identification of unknown suspects' ethnicity through unscrupulous expert opinion of the crime itself is of course inherently biased news coverage. It is also persecution of such minorities to allow self-avowed violent criminals to be by media cast as representatives of their whole ethnicity. Whenever done under the guise of understanding ethnicity itself, this is quite obviously to be received as a deliberately bigoted act targeting entire ethnic groups. Equally protect all innocents, forcing none to be housed with harmful, dangerous persons excused by shared ethnicity. We contribute our talents in the ethnically mad community to call out for the end of not only sanism, but of terrorism, of torture, wars, warlike occupations, other ethnic bigotry, hate, and abuse of human equality. It is a tradition of gentle mad people caught in historical or modern hate-filled societies, finding themselves not as able, being emotionally sensitive individuals, to covertly adjust to the status quo that would keep us in petty social standing, to express distress. Often our ancestors would risk institutionalized harm for trying to break the silence surrounding the exploitation and abuse of our fellow human beings wherever it was first confronted by them. We have been Henry David Thoreau and Maya Angelou and Nelson Mandela. Today and forevermore lives on a strong multi-ethnic case of drapetomania, the love and thirst for freedom. We know neither a genetically, nor spiritually, nor otherwise excused holocaust of our ethnicity to be any more acceptable than do any supposed normal people whom regularly receive superior treatment, yet who argue at advocacy to exclude the ethnically mad from those same fundamental rights which they are unwilling to themselves forfeit. The mad and their allies work together for justice and equality, ignoring the divisive fits and sabotage of those whose mentality is clearly all in prejudice. We will not let our voice be eliminated. Our art is to express that to segregate us is to divide the human race. For wherever the human race is divided under any name, there we were, defined in some novel new context, and segregated anyway. Question: what is mad ethnicity And who is Mad Jiminy Crow? Since the days of MLK, we all know who Jim and Jane Crow were. But we can define Jiminy Crow as any minority, whom is held as equal in legal theories, but in reality has been legally and unequally segregated. So the following generalities especially apply to the 1 in 5 currently mentally disordered Americans. I'm sorry, those figures are from 1999 Surgeon General report. It's gone up recently, at least by government data. Who are Jiminy Crows of mad ethnicity, considered equal in public relations, but in reality legally segregated as inferior and often abused behind those closed doors of segregation. Segregation of the mad is most frequently argued openly by reason of 1. Physiological distinctness within the human population. 2. Behavioral distinctness within the culture. Or 3. Circumstantial distinctness within the class or caste. Since these are all time-worn arguments of every imaginable authority desiring to segregate us, it is clear that we mad are a distinct, if wonderfully diverse, mad ethnicity. Jiminy lives under crow laws as bad as that of any should he fall victim to them and discover that his equality is a legally unenforceable fiction. Once upon a past bigoted time, there was something now called scientific racism, which sought to segregate the rights of minority by visible physiological traits. The bigots of today have been so opposed that they have gotten sneakier and now segregate the rights of human beings by invisible genetic traits. But the slogan of superiority is still there, written in segregate laws for Jiminy Crow, for whom race protection laws are but a skin-deep thing that has yet to protect or defend. Here are a few common Jiminy Crow principles as handed down by the same bigot. 1. Jiminy Crow is equal, but his rights must be segregate. 2. Jiminy is always to receive the same consideration when he is innocent as when he is actually guilty. 3. Jiminy must not be allowed to try to prove his innocence in court in normal due process should the court deny him the plea of simple innocence prior to his trial. 4. Jiminy Crow's legal representation may override his decisions by permission of the court he is defendant to, assigning him instead a segregate insanity plea, and is considered a sign of neutrality on the part of the judge to then consider his confinement without considering whether he is guilty. 5. Innocent Jiminy Crow is told by the bigot that in protesting this segregate insanity plea, he is being discriminatory against himself. He must comply with the advocacy of those that believe they are superior to him. 6. Jiminy Crow is so hard not to kill that police must receive special education and brutality allowances for a learning curve that will ensure seldom prosecuted errors. 7. Jiminy Crow suffers from problems unique to Jiminy Crow that kill him when specially educated police electrocute him with a Jiminy Crow stick, electrocution gun, as trained. 8. It is too bad that Jiminy Crow gets so excited delirium, that getting too much electricity actually kills him. But it is not the bigot's fault, even if it was expected that he was excitable or vulnerable under medication. His death is not important. He cannot die a normal death, for he is not a normal person. 9. Jiminy must never be allowed to serve on a police force, jury, or legal system of any kind. He must even receive a doctor's special permission to apply for the license of a private investigator. Therefore, his representation begins and ends with others enforcing their laws upon him. 10. Jiminy Crow has the right to be informed to comply with his treatment. 11. Jiminy Crow may see police and be handcuffed when he only requires an ambulance. 12. Jiminy Crow must be taught to distrust others like him. 13. Jiminy Crow must be treated en masse to segregate policies, but should be discouraged from recognizing that he has thusly been made into a people. 14. Jiminy Crow has a contested right to be converted to any belief originated by others, but must never be allowed to originate his own beliefs, spiritual or philosophic, and may be treated involuntarily to make him appear to comply appropriately, by dispensing with claims to whatever others may have declared not valid even as his individual beliefs. First Amendment religious freedoms are all right for bigots, but may be forbidden Jiminy on pains of confinement, drugging, and electric torture. 15. Jiminy Crow must be made to understand that his genes set himself apart from the human race, even in human rights, but that race equality protection shall never be shared with his kind because they are the unequal of everyone else. 16. Any unsolved crime not understood is by default blamable on Jiminy Crow, and may be expertly profiled as a Jiminy Crow type crime, even before police or media have an actual suspect to accuse. 17. Jiminy Crow is assumed to be guilty unless somehow proven innocent, despite the fact that he himself was denied a plea to prove it himself. 18. Whenever involuntary, Jiminy Crow is automatically assumed incompetent, unless somehow proven competent in spite of refusing to be voluntarily fixed for incompetence. If he gives it up, it just goes to show that he is now proven incompetent because he didn't fight from that compromised position he was offered by the same folks. 19. If Jiminy Crow ever wishes to leave the hospital, he must first commit the fraud of signing discharge papers that stipulate he has improved from a bad condition. Otherwise, he may be held prisoner by his treatment indefinitely. 20. What is regarded as cruel and unusual treatment of a criminal is humane when forced on Jiminy Crow, regardless of whether crime was even a factor, and is billable as simply treatment. 21. Jiminy Crow is a strain on society and not easily employable. Therefore, Jiminy must be satisfied on welfare and not complain about lack of opportunities. 22. Jiminy Crow is a consumer without power who may be held indefinitely, while monies are paid by the state per capita of Jiminy Crow. But Jiminy Crow, never even as the individual consumer, has the right to direct who may or may not take funds upon his involuntary behalf.